and they drug him out of gunpoint. And all I could say at that time, after I figured out, I myself, I didn't know Charles Harris. I didn't make the case. I didn't have anything to do with it. But come to find out, Charles Harris had come here. He was armed. If he had been the one that I found running around the courthouse, it'd probably been between me and him out here in the courthouse alone. But Henry Turner was unarmed. He had nothing. And anyway, Francis Cameron's got more to the story that he can tell, and I'll turn it over to him. And he can give some more details about it, but that's the part that I had in it, was catching Henry Turner right here at the southeast corner of the building.
Well, first off, I think Butch Hall needs to come up here and sit down. Oh, I think that's about as precise as it can get. We'll sit down and go more comfortable that way. When I showed up, Captain Mormon had him, Deputy Mormon, he's deputy back there all the time. He had him there. The man was obviously very burned. And that was one of the reasons that later we got fussed at by the Department of Justice because I was holding a gun on him. And we wasn't about to put handcuffs on a man with third-degree burns on his arm. Okay? So yes, I had a rifle there with me. That was one of the complaints I had. When David was talking about the way this place filled up, if you can imagine an anthill and you kick it, that's exactly what happened this night. I don't know how it happened. There's this little book, I think it was a high school project, came out some years ago. If you can ever get your hands on it, there's pretty good stories in here about the courthouse, where I think they talked to David, they talked to me, talked to a few others in here. But there's really great stories in here. But anyway, I won't call Brady Huddleston's name, but he came up here on crutches. He had a broke foot. That was how intense people looked at this courthouse. Now, we talk about the mob gathering. Look around the room. I'll say, look at each other. Okay? You see friends, don't you? Tell me if I'm lying on this one. When you look out there and you see friends of yours saying, I got plenty of rope and even two of them. Y'all think I'm kidding. That was said. I remember we looked at each other and I thought, this stuff didn't get real. But we got him over to the quarters upstairs at jail. He had previously made, out here he says, 2 guys run over the blah, blah, blah. It was a lie, you know. We wasn't worried about that then. What concerned us, nobody does something like that alone, okay? And if he was burned up the way he was, there was somebody else out there, okay? I mean, it did not make sense for him to suddenly blow himself up. We were ready for an ambush. We didn't know. I mean, what would it been if he tried to kill his partner? What would have been the problem to killing, shooting 2 cops out there in the yard? So we were very cautious. Maybe one of the things that saved us might have been the mob to come up.
Yeah, there were a lot of people.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened, but let's see, that was 35 years ago. And the statute of limitations run out. So anyway, and there are no payphones left. Back then, one of the things we had to do was cut off the line of communication. For a while, anybody here work for a phone company? You know, if you did back a few years, you were going to have to replace several payphones around here. Well, just the wire. But we tried to do what we could to eliminate an escape route for him. The whole thing, like I say, was chaotic. To this day, you know, thinking about the statements made, thinking about the way the crowd gathered. People loved this courthouse. I mean, This was almost like a holy icon to people. But anyway, after we got Turner transported, last Gray had gotten information from a lady across the line in Clayton County at a convenience store that they had, somebody come in smelling like gas and the whole bit. Described the vehicle. To this day, we're not sure if that was a vehicle, if that was a person or not. I have my doubts. Whatever it was, something triggered the lookout on that vehicle. When Harris was stopped, he had that pistol stuck up under his. It was up on the front seat. Our speculation was that once he'd have got up to Atlanta, he would have probably offed him. The whole thing was, it's just hard to imagine how everything just fell in together. Okay. You know, as a prologue to it, you know, in addition to what David said, we were investigated by the FBI for torturing him, denying him medical treatment. You know that? So the FBI come talk to us, and that is also where I got my nickname, Big Indian. He didn't remember my name, although he remembered my name and wanted me to be. He was describing me, and he said, "Yeah, he's a big Indian." So anyway, that kind of stuck with me for a while. But the whole thing basically boiled down to the fact that, by some opinions, and this was what Caldwell used on the motion for retrial when Turner came down, was that Turner had been beaten up several times while in prison by some of Charles Harris's friends. Give him change the story, give him tell the story. And I sit here and look at each one of you. I never tortured Charles, never tortured Henry Turner. The only thing we did was keep him from getting lynched. And I'll tell you straight up front, if it hadn't been for David Moore and myself and the EMS getting him out of town, it would have happened. It was that scary. And once again, when like David was saying, as far as him getting off the hook, not spending any time, you can thank the FBI for that. Charles Harris had a long history of pimping, drug dealing, all sorts of stuff. But that was one of the reasons, if he's still alive, still walking the streets. Personally, I hope he met some other thing.
Yeah, I haven't heard nothing out of him in years.
No, I hadn't either, thank God. Maybe we wind back in this green back department justice. But the thing with that whole ordeal was, you know, it hurt the people of Fayette County very deeply. You know, the people of Fayette County's have a strange sense of community. You know, folks from Brooks might despise folks from Fayetteville, Fayetteville might despise folks from Peachtree City might hate Tyrone, anybody might hate anybody. But in the grand scheme of things, they all boil down to being Fayette Countyans. And the way everybody came together, regardless of the fact that they wanted to get you and me out of the way. But then that was the thing. This was, once again, this is old remembrances, and you know, I can say that I'm very proud to be part of Fayette County, and I'm just totally impressed with the way everybody came together. But for show and tell, once again, if you get a chance to find a copy of this, it's from 1990, and Fayette Portraits. every time I can come across something like that. Now then, don't be alarmed, because it is tied off, it won't jump off the dresser and shoot nobody. This pistol I carried the night that all this went down. Regrettably, they took my select fire rifle away from me. I think they traded it in on something else. It was a fixed stock Ruger 5.56 select fire. AC 5.56, right? Yeah. Anyway, but that's about it. It was just the one thing that's really left a mark on me is the way an adversity like that can turn kind people into a mob. And I pray to God I'll never see nothing like that again. If I do, pray to God He shows me a way to get out of it.
Tom, will you and Jimmy tell us about the fire?
Sure. Give you just a little bit of history. In the later 70s, the fire department was set up into districts. And at the point in time that the fire occurred in 1982, the districts had started to hire a few firefighters. And as the department was starting to grow, there was some daytime firemen, and then everybody else was on duty. And the volunteers would come in during the daytime and then also at night. This being a Sunday night, there wasn't anybody on duty. And so with this magnitude of a fire, the Fayetteville Fire Department was still down here where the depot is now, still in that building. And then Station 4, the county station, is over where it still is now on Johnson Avenue beside the Sheriff's Department. That was before the Sheriff's Department ever moved. And the volunteers were paged and everybody started coming in. Well, that was called a Y'all Come fire because it was the county, the city, Peachtree City, and the people that worked for the county and the volunteers worked for Sam Champion. And Clayton County was called because there wasn't any ladder trucks at that point in time in Fayette County. So the ladder truck came from Clayton, and I remember when it came down past the Sheriff's Department, the biggest place for it to come in and stage, it pulled right here on the west side. If you'll look at the pictures, you'll see one truck that's pulled up in the grass over on this side, and there was one parked over here on the south side. John Crow and I actually, before, when it was still, the bench was over here in the corner, and you came in this direction, there was a door over there that had a little, probably 12 by 12 square. And John Crow and I made it up to that door, and the whole room was full of fire. And I won't ever forget, he said, "Tom, I think we need to back out. We don't have everything we need water-wise." And we worked our way back down, and we had actually come to the third floor right there. And by the time we did that, within a few minutes, the roof was already starting to cave in, and Clayton County was coming around the corner. They talked about the mob, and that's one of the things that I vividly remember, is the only other time I've ever seen that many people in downtown Fayetteville was when the torch came through. But to not have the communications like we have now, you know, something can occur a million miles away and you hear about it just like that. But the people were 12, 15, and 20 feet deep all the way around. And it just, I don't understand how that communications took place. But that was by far the most people I had ever seen in this area. But most everybody came from home. We spent the whole night here, Clayton County, pouring water on it. And, you know, at that point in time, there was nothing really to be saved. From the time when David said the building looked like it lifted off, at that point in time, there was nothing to be saved. It was just a process of putting water on it, and then we did make efforts on the first and second floor to try to salvage what was underneath there. But at that point in time, that was the biggest fire, you know, that I had ever seen in my life. So, Jimmy helped with the investigation. He's got some pictures here. The state came in with the Sheriff's Department, and you know, all of the stuff up here had to be put back what had been moved but all of the judges' bench, everything had to be put back, and you'll see in the pictures, it's painstakingly what had been put back based on people's memory to be able to set it back up for the investigators to come in.
I think Tom pretty much summed it all up, and I'll share these pictures with you.
Bobby, I know you and John were part of the aftermath. I know you were here that night. Bobby, tell us a little bit. Before that mob out. I was gonna say, I don't wanna say Bobby was part of the mob, but he showed up, but I don't know how.
I was part of the mob. Talking about how communication gets out, my brother Tom Curlin was the editor of Fayette County News at that time. And he called me and said he had just got a call from Mr. Tribble, who owned Fayette County News. And he had got the call from the Georgia State Patrol, who was hit, Tyler was in Manchester. So Tribble got the call almost as soon as y'all got it from the State Patrols. So he told me his courthouse was on fire, so we took off. And when we topped the hill down here at C Road, you could see the whole sky lit up here. And I told him, I said, we might as well turn around and go back home. Because, anyway, but we got here, like you say, there was people everywhere. And it was chaos because there was fire everywhere. And you looked at it as a total loss, but then pretty soon you realized that fire wasn't going in further than this floor, if I remember right. And back it up to 1965 when they remodeled the courthouse, this concrete floor and hill was dovetailed into the walls. So it acted like a fire break as the fire failed, so it didn't go any further down. So all the records that they were trying to destroy were intact on the lower floors. Of course, you know, firefighters and policemen and all, they took control of everything. And like I say, everybody was milling around, and there's a lot of accusations and what we should do and all that. And I don't really remember that, but I do. I'll kind of get away from the fire and talk about what happened right after me. Okay, the Historical Society was formed right after the sesquicentennial. Everything for the sesquicentennial took place right around this courthouse. Everything we had was around the courthouse. Like Francis said, with the courthouse was the center of our county. And people, there were stories about the courthouse from eons back. Well, the commissioners, a few nights later, this was Easter Sunday, a few nights later, the commissioners, I'm going to try to call some names, I think Rosemary Harper, Tom Harris,
Raymond
Johnson. Anyway, the commissioners called a meeting with the Historical Society. And the only place to meet at that time, big enough, was Beliers. So we went all down to Beliers Barbecue, and we had a meeting between the commissioners and the board of directors from the Fayette County Historical Society. This has been 35 years ago, but I'm going to try to relate to you what I kind of remember happening. They was already talking about what to do about the courthouse. Some people wanted to rebuild it, some of them wanted to bulldoze it, some of them wanted to make a parking lot out there. So the commissioners had the board of directors. John was there, on the board of directors, and Carolyn Carey. Back up just a little bit. Carolyn Carey was president of the Historical Society. She was out of town whenever this took place. Well, we knew that this courthouse was her baby. I mean, this was what she built everything around. She was out of town in Ohio. Well, when she got back here on Monday morning after the fire, she saw the courthouse thing. Carolyn, John, I, and a few other board members met down in Beliers. And they tried to deed it over to the Historical Society that night. Think about this. This was one of the proposals that they would actually deed the courthouse over to the Historical Society. In the pictures we're going to see later, we show you what the condition of the courthouse was. And Our annual meeting for the Historical Society is always in March, which was the month before fire. And the way we elect our officers for the year, we take the board of directors, which are voted on in March, and then we have a meeting of the Historical Society. We elect the officers out of that board. Well, I didn't want an office. I done held my own every office it was at that time, so like most organizations, I stayed at home. And they called me and said, would you take treasurer? Well, at that time, we had about $250 in the bank, I think. We wrote about 10 checks a year. So what was the deal about being treasurer, you know? Well, when we met with the commissioners down there, we adjourned. We always say we adjourned out to the pig. You know, where the pig used to be out in front of Molier's, out in the long part out there. So the board of directors, we adjourned out to the pig, and we had a meeting out there, knowing there wasn't anything we could do about, you know, taking the courthouse. That was out of the question. But we were a nonprofit organization, and we agreed to be the official funding agent for all the donations to come in for the restoration of the courthouse. And that's what we were. We were the official restoration. Just a bit later, all the things we did over the next few weeks, we had donations that come in from all over the country, all over the state. Clubs, churches, anybody that was involved, old-time Fayette County, people that had passed through here, saw the courthouse and everything. We got donations. We sold T-shirts, we sold bricks, we sold tiles off the courthouse, everything. And between the insurance money, which I think maybe I might have got a little bit more money out there, we probably should have, but we got a good bit of insurance money, and then the donations and everything. The Historical Society raised somewhere, memory escaping me, it was somewhere in the $35,000 range that we raised. And as our efforts, we were promised space in the courthouse. We'll do a little politicking here. The Historical Society was promised space in the courthouse for our headquarters. Well, after all the restoration and everything went forward, we got space. There's a basement in this place. It stands in water most of the time. So what few records we had, they mildewed, almost burned, in our promised space in the courthouse. Eventually, we did take possession of the old Market Library. And before I sit down, we'll tell one other little thing about Charles Harris that maybe even y'all don't know. 1986, I was fortunate enough to get called for the federal grand jury in Richard Russell building downtown Atlanta. They picked 26 people from the northern third of Georgia. That's from Atlanta to Chattanooga. If I could only be that lucky in the lottery, you know, 26 people were chosen to be on the federal grand jury at the Richard Russell building. So Commissioner Sam Caldwell labor racketeering case, that's what it was all about. But they would run cases before us right in there. Well, they decided that one moment there that we didn't have a lot to do. So they said, we're going to bring a gentleman before you that has some information on something that was going on in the city at that time. And I'm sitting in the jury room at the Russell building city. His name's Charles Harris, and he's the president being held in jail for the firebombing in the Fayette County Courthouse. You can imagine how that hit me in the face as I'm sitting there. Because they asked the usual question, does anybody have any knowledge of any of these people? I raised my hand. I'd been on the jury at that time. I was on that jury for 14 months. But I got to know everybody in the room at that time, and they all looked at me. And I said, well, I'm going to tell you what I know about Charles Harris. And y'all decide to go ahead and probe if you want to. So I said, he's a known informant for law enforcement. He's always tried to make deals. He probably tried to make a deal in Fayette County, and it didn't go. Then he was trying to make a deal with the city of Atlanta. And I told him, I said, this is the way he gets out of things. And, because I've had my spill, I had learned the case by that time. They decided we would run that over the green at that time. So they said, well, he know you? I said, no, he wouldn't know me. I probably didn't know him, probably see him. But anyway, they brought him in there, and he told them, so by that time, I had already, that's up there over there, so anyway, that was, but, Charles Harris, I don't like saying, I don't know if he's still alive, to be not, it would Bob Bill on, you know, so. But, it was talk about being a galvanizing thing that pulled the county together. This really did pull the county together. You know, they put a fence around the courthouse to keep people off of it during construction. And it wasn't a real nice wrought iron fence, everything like that. It was a hog wire fence with fence posts around it. But we had a thermometer on this corner out here showing how much money had been raised. And you'll see pictures, I think, here in a minute of how much money had been raised. So I think this was one of the big things that happened in Fayette County. They always said that the way that we renovated things in Fayette County was by fires. We had several school fires. I was at the Fayette County High School when it burned in 1954. I was here in 1982 when it burned, but I didn't say it was fire.
Well, I actually was not here that night, but I can tell you, I'll give you a perspective of what it was like to have gotten here the morning after. For some reason, we did not get a call that night, and we lived far enough away out here off of 54 that we didn't hear anything and didn't see anything. And this young man here was not my son-in-law at the time. Had he been my son-in-law at the time, he would have probably called and told us. But we did not get a call, but we did get a call very early Monday morning from one of the daughter's boyfriends who said either the courthouse had burned down or the courthouse had burned up. I don't remember the exact wording, but it just floored us. And so I called in, took a day off of work, and Brenda and I got in the car and we rushed down here. And I'll tell you, it was kind of like reminiscent of Scarlett O'Hara returning to Tara. We were wondering, is it still there? Is it still there? And I knew at what point on Highway 54 coming in, I should be able to see that clock. And when we got to that point, I didn't see that clock. And I got, a little distressed about that. But then as we came on into town and got within view of the courthouse, as the smoke cleared, as they say, we saw that it was still here. It was heavily damaged. The roof was gone. There were a few timbers left up there. The clock was gone completely. The tower was up, but it was a jagged spire. It looked terrible. The only good thing that I can remember about it, we knew that it was not a total loss. It was badly damaged. And I do remember that there were still a lot of people here that had been here all night, and some of them were still angry. I remember that. Most everybody was in shock, I think. And one of the funniest things I remember about being here that morning was that Harry Holston was the fire chief, city of Fayetteville. And for some reason, he came over to me and wanted to bring me into the building. And I said, there were things still falling and there was smoldering going on. And I said, Harry, I don't think I'm going to take you up on that. I'll pass on that. I'm glad I did. But they were angry people, but there was something else going on. And I was one of the people that thought of this, and I know there were other people of like mind that we knew in the back of our minds that this place was not a total loss, and that it was salvageable. It could be fixed. And so from that day, I think that seed started, and of course the Historical Society was a big part of that. And so it did get fixed. Probably not as good as the original, but it just shows you that some good can come out of something bad. And we had those fundraisers, and I remember going out to the work camp where they dumped all the debris from, you know, from the building here, and we went out there to salvage bricks and nails and tile and slate, anything we could find that we could sell. And that's what we did. We sold it. We came up with the T-shirt, we came up with bumper stickers, and it was a county effort, like Francis and Bobby said. And I don't know if Francis remembers it, but he came out there and checked up on me when I was out there scratching around out at the county work camp, loading up those bricks and all that. And I'm sure somebody had called in and said, there's a gentleman out here stealing the trash. But, yeah, so he came out and that was okay. And that's how it went off. And
I think it helped you pick up a few.
you probably did, I think so. But it was a county effort, and I just remember everybody, you know, all the people that participated. There were a few people who wanted to tear it down. There were a few people who didn't really know what to do, but the ones of us that really were in, you know, preserving it, we won out, and the commissioners embraced us, and we partnered with them and got the job done. So it's and that piece of plastic right there, that's part of the clock face. So you can see how that thing, the clock faces were made out of hard composite plastic type stuff, and they just melted and fell, and that's what was left. Part of the debris that was salvaged. And, we still have a few of the debris. We have some newer tile now that we're trying to sell. So Alice, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Jimmy, do you think from what Bobby said, the reason the whole building didn't burn was because of the
Absolutely. The timbers up top, that was the only thing that was flammable. Like I said, when it got to this floor here, it pretty much cut off. And I was going to say something else too. And correct me if I'm wrong, Eddie, the records from the burglary, they were across the street.
They were in Thomaston.
Sir?
They were in Thomaston.
They were in Thomaston, okay. So even if they burned it slapped to the ground, the records were in Thomaston, they wasn't here.
Was this concrete floor put in originally?
No, so this concrete floor was put in when they put the third floor on. And you may, I don't keep up with those dates, I mean,
1965.
1965.
What happened, for some of you that don't, I don't know if you've got the picture, but, you know, it was really a two-story building. But in '65, they went in and raised the floor of the second floor, lowered the ceiling of the first floor, and that basically slid the floor in between. That's simple terms. They put a concrete floor here and dovetailed it into the wall, so it acted like a fireplace.
Right, it wasn't going any further there.
The old first floor, which Sarah Morgan's up there, was one of my uncle's secretaries many years ago. But the first floor had a little small attic in the clerk's office that you could not stand up in. That a boy could. In fact, my uncle used to send me up there to get papers and stuff. But anyway, so the ceilings were real high in the first floor. And that's how they were able to, you know, ascertain that they could make it a three-story building.
Well, even if he was started on the first floor, it would have gone every night.
You could have went out and around.
You were talking about communication. I was going to make a funny statement. Over our church owned what was the Griggs house. It was rented out to ASC and Aubrey Varner and I don't know who else. And Mary, who was the maid of Dorothea Redwine, Mary and I were standing on that porch. And Mary said, I've got to call Miss Dorothy. And so it was real funny, you know, we have so much security that we opened the door to Aubrey's office. It had not been locked. So Mary continued to give, I don't know if Dorothea ever came up here or not, but Mary called Dorothea and gave her a play-by-play account of what was going on in a small town.
You got a question?
Yeah, and you may have said this and I didn't hear, but what records were burned on the third floor? Were they current records or historic records?
You had some law books and that type of stuff that was damaged, but there was no records up here on
Oh,
this floor.
really? Okay.
There were some filing cabinets we hauled some out that was in the basement. Dad can tell us what was in them.
Just old records over the years, it wasn't anything just at
Current.
that time
Yeah.
that pertained to the court or anything like that. Like all that, Judge Whalen was a judge then, and he lived in Thomaston, lived in Griffin, but all our records were in Thomaston. So if you burned the building clean down, it wouldn't have been it.
Right. Like I said, there's some old records that do a whole bunch of nothing. We hauled out all the places.
I got a question. May I interrupt you? What was from the time of the fire to the time they started holding court again, how long was it?
So, I believe they had court, what, next day?
The next day, that's right, Francis. They did.
Inside, with the,
No, they were up at the Waffle, behind the Waffle House, isn't that right, Francis?
There was a game room and then an empty stretch, and we always crack jokes later on that you go in there and get a divorce and play Pac-Man while you're waiting.
when was this building
How long did it take for the
It
restoration?
was dedicated in, was it early,
The summer after that.
yeah,
Summer after Easter?
Because one of the things that I picked up on when I was doing
I
the
think it
history
was
of the
May
log cabin,
1983.
you remember how frequently they had court over at the log cabin? Is that true?
Pardon?
The log cabin, the American Legion log cabin, they had court over there for a while?
We don't remember that.
Yeah.
Now, like I say, I was always amused because I started working, Chief Hall had assigned me to court services while we were holding court over there at in the shopping center behind the Waffle House. Where's that little town?
My father-in-law,
Uh-huh.
he was a part of the crew that came in and took all of the top off that was burned and then helped with the crews. He did the planning and all for it to go back.
Restoration began on August 1983 and was completed in May of 1984.
And that's when they were, in '84, they were holding court back in here.
Yes.
There was court, Sarah helped me on that, Sarah was, the secretary. Sarah, didn't they have court in the log cabin when they were renovating this building in 65 and 66? I believe that's where they had court in the log cabin.
Back then, that was the only community room we had in the county. See, it was the only room, everybody used the log cabin, the post house, for everything. That's where just almost every organization in the county formed or held their original meeting, because that was the only place in town that you could, big enough to hold anything. Just about every organization, and a lot of churches started off in that post house.
Saturday night team dances and Saturday afternoon youth.
Here we go.
John, I just want to know, what time was it when you first heard that river break? What time of night was that, approximately?
It was coming on 11 o'clock.
So that's what I'm trying to think, how did that many people get in this town that
Well-
late at night? Cousin Charlene, huh?
Cousin Charlene was telling me that Jimmy had come to the bank and he heard it or saw it, right?
At 11 o'clock at night?
Well, late night, and we only live a mile from
Right.
here. So then it's quieter, there's not as much going on. We could hear the courthouse, the clock. So of course you're gonna hear something like that.
It's just before 11 o'clock.
Do y'all have any other questions for our panel? Or you may have other tidbits you can share with us.
Well, something Chief Hall too, if you
Yes.
remember. Do you remember that couple that came up? We thought that they were trying to bail Harris out. That was because he had Plan B.
Yeah,
And
I don't remember the names or anything.
I don't remember the name either, but
I can't remember.
it was a
That's right.
man and a woman, and I think she was
Yeah,
some of his hired help.
something, I don't remember the names.
What was your comment?
I was just gonna say, so when the state fire marshal's office was summoned? Was that the next day, or do y'all remember?
That was the, yes, next day, KG Davis.
I remember I saw KG's picture. I worked at the Prime Lab then, and he brought the evidence to me. I analyzed those types of samples. And were you there when he packaged up the evidence?
Yes, I had to package them up.
You remember what containers they were in?
No, I don't.
30-gallon galvanized cans.
Trash cans.
That. And inside them were law books. Somebody asked what was there. And I opened one of them up. There was plenty of evidence. And I opened it up and I took one page. I mean, it was a gasoline station. I took one page and said, KG, that's all I really needed was one page. Even you were talking about how burned the nylon was. I got all of his clothing from the hospital. And they weren't packaged in glass. I don't believe they were. But I could still identify gasoline in almost all of them.
Yeah, because when I said that nylon jacket, it just adhered to him, and just,
I got that jacket.
it formed right to his body.
The old style coach's jacket.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess there was no doubt as to who did it or how he did it at that point, even from the lab standpoint.
It was, you know, it doesn't say who did it, but it was definitely plenty of it there. And I recall testifying in the building you were describing. That's where the court was held. And I remember Don Samuels was one of the defense attorneys.
Matter of fact,
It's not the defense attorney.
Yeah, Mr. Samuels was the one that went down and interviewed Henry Turner, and that's where I got my nom de guerre, nom de plume, whatever, of Big Indian. You should, matter of fact, I've got a copy of that whole thing somewhere in my old books and all that junk, and it's borderline hilarious. He didn't pick on you in that thing much, did he? You didn't torture him?
One thing I remember about the fire itself that night, and when we got the courthouse tiles to sale, I do a little a commercial here, but I remember as the fire was getting really underway and everything was burning, as the tiles were sliding off the courthouse and hit the ground. I remember that very much. They were sliding off all four sides. And for one thing for me to be worried about them, we've got a time capsule buried right out here. And I said, I bet it's just throwing the plaque on that time capsule, you know. Huh?
It's been replaced.
The plaque is over here, and you can see where it was damaged from that. We've got a video in the back that's got some pictures on it, and we've got these boards we'll put back up that's got the actual crime scene photos. We've got some scrapbooks and some papers here too, and we do still have, we found when we were cleaning out the Historical Society, we still have, I saved the courthouse t-shirts for sale. And the tiles we have are from when they just put a new roof on a couple of years ago. And so on the back of those, it's got a history sort of the courthouse. And we've been selling those just as a fundraiser for the Historical Society. It seems everybody, like you were saying, wherever you're from, if you're from Fayette County, the courthouse is a special landmark for all of us. And so we thought those would be great gifts. And so we also, our board has provided refreshments, and back there we've got some great goodies for you and some things to drink. But I hope you'll stick around, talk to these guys, look at some of the stuff we have. And for those of you who aren't members of the Historical Society, I always have to pitch that for $10 a year you can be a member. And we meet typically September through May and have speakers or different presentations each month. And so we'd love for you to be part of us, not just on a special occasion like today, but throughout the year. We do meet usually at the Margaret Mitchell Research Center right down the street, and so we'd love to have you as part. But I hope you'll stick around and visit with these folks, have some refreshments, and thank you all for coming and for sharing today.